the lockdown, a temporary ban was put on evictions, but that ended in September. During that time, the notice period for Section 21s was extended to 3 months, and then again to 6 months. But we're still campaigning for them to be permanently scrapped. For those tenants who have rent arrears or complaints of antisocial behaviour, there is also another notice called Section 8. We were concerned that during lockdown, these would increase due to tenants being furloughed or losing their job and ending up in rent arrears through no fault of their own. This would provide another route for landlords to go down, and more people will end up homeless. So, the eviction ban ended in September. This means many tenants will have already been served with Section 21 notices. And now that we've gone into Tier 3 without an adequate government support package, the numbers will increase. In the current situation, under Tier 3, workers whose place of work has been forced to close down with not adequate government support, this will result in many more low-paid workers facing huge rent increases, arrears and evictions. Also, the easement of the benefits cap, which was to run for 9 months, will end around December. Those who made the earliest claims, private renters, will be most affected by this. There are currently 400,000 people on furlough in Greater Manchester, and this has doubled since March. And 8,000 households in Greater Manchester face eviction due to arrears. For the next 3 months, the Tenants Union will be focusing our campaign on housing issues in Hume, Ardwick and Moss Side. We want to build strong, vibrant branches of the Tenants Union in our diverse communities. We will be leafleting throughout these areas and holding street stalls with information about Tenants Union and our upcoming events. The long-term aim, of course, is to campaign for more social housing, an end to buy-to-let and the right to buy, and to bring back rent control, which was abolished under the Thatcher government. Until the housing crisis is resolved, we will not be able to eradicate poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we've got another NHS speaker. We've got Emma, who's a doctor in the NHS. So please give Emma a big warm welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emma Runswick. I'm a junior doctor at Bolton, and also I'm a member of BMA Council, which is our National Executive Committee of our trade union. We've had a really, really difficult several months, as you can imagine. Bolton is one of the highest affected places in the country at the moment, and we are once again, moving to COVID rotas and difficult periods of time. The difference is that this time there is no government support. The difference is that this time we don't have national lockdown with furlough. We have a system which is almost designed to continue the spread of coronavirus. And also we have a much greater level of scepticism amongst the public, because the government is not taking the actions that would be appropriate for public health. It encourages conspiracy theories. And we've had a couple of people spotted around here today who have got anti-mask slogans, and I would beg those people, stop being silly. It isn't a joke. People are dying. People are becoming seriously ill, including working age people who've not got previous illnesses, who are having symptoms of long COVID. It's not the virus that's a scam, it's the Tories. And I beg that the people who voted Tory in the red wall seats, who've got their Tory MPs now voting against free school meals, are recognising what's happened to this country. For the price of Brexit, we've had a pandemic that has been poorly controlled from the beginning, prioritised profit over public health and public lives, used the crisis to pass money to their mates instead of protecting people. So, if you're in a workplace, if you're a trade union activist in a workplace where you haven't got adequate sick leave or sick pay, where you haven't got a policy around isolation, I want you to come and chat to me. The BMA has got a policy of supporting workplaces and trade unionists. So if you've got a problem in your workplace and you want support from our doctors' trade union, come and have a chat. We will write to your employer. We will write to the local press. We will shame them until they give you what we need to bring down this virus, bring it back under control, get our NHS back working again, and save lives. Okay, so come and have a chat, okay, if you've got problems in work.
I want to introduce our next speaker now, who's involved in a campaign, and I think it's a really worthy campaign. We had huge discussions about the statues in this country earlier this year, and I think, you know, one of the most obvious things about that is the lack of representation of our class in those statues. And Deej is behind a really important campaign to get a statue of Len Johnson, who some of you may know, but I'm sure he'll talk about a little bit more. So please welcome up onto the stage Deej Johnson.
We're embarking on a period of government-mandated poverty, deprivation and isolation. The establishment of pointed accusatory fingers at the poor, people of colour and Northern MPs. Just this week, Northern mayors like our own have dared to show resistance, and Tory politicians have responded with contempt. They've attempted to distract us time and again by playing on old prejudices, attempting to divide the working class. And they are now attempting to do to Greater Manchester exactly what they did to Liverpool and the mining communities in the 1980s. The Tories have declared war upon us for standing up to their clownish rule. We saw that when Oldham was going into lockdown. The BBC's reporting was plastered with images of visibly Muslim women, implying that rising infection rates were somehow their fault. We saw that the restrictions tightened without warning just hours before the start of Eid. We heard this dog whistle and we remember the sound of it. We have seen working class communities of colour are the worst affected from this virus. Our loved ones are dying. We are left with unspeakable wounds whilst they are buried behind closed doors. These are human beings, they are not just statistics. We have witnessed doctors, nurses, support workers and care assistants relying on charity for protective equipment. Some call it the Dunkirk spirit, but I call it what it is. A national disgrace that our NHS, our proudest institution, is reduced to such a position. We have had continuous attacks on those perceived as immigrants, but no real acknowledgement that the first doctors and nurses in this country who lost their lives fighting with the coronavirus, most of them were Muslim, and most of them were immigrants or their immediate descendants. We have black communities attacked by our media and those in power for peacefully protesting. As these same media voices deny the existence of structural injustice, we see COVID-19 blowing out the candle of life for yet more black brothers and sisters. And despite a global pandemic, our so-called leaders still can't find it in their hearts to welcome refugees. Their bag carriers insist on rejecting those fleeing wars that many of them gleefully cheered on. But friends, we will not be defeated. We know what they're about. As medics continue to sacrifice their health, their family time and their safety to care for the sick, we need to stand with them against a callous government and an insidiously racist press. Our elders have endured in care homes without seeing their loved ones. Kids have continued in unbelievably hard circumstances. But despite this, we've all kept the embers of our community alive. We will take this moment upon us and we will go on. Already we have seen that countless restaurants and cafes have stand in solidarity by providing free meals for hungry children. The same children that this government has abandoned. We have seen that the nation that has turned on the politicians and trolls who attempted to demonise poor families and denounce our own Marcus Rashford. And we have seen football fans led by Mancunians, Scousers and Geordies donating their TV subscription money to food banks to ensure that we all get through this. But friends, where is our government in our hour of need? When we ask for a decent and sustainable income in our pay packets, for our businesses to be given enough to survive, and for our children to be supported during what will be the hardest winter in living memory, did they lend a hand, or did they sneeringly spit in our faces? Comrades, we deserve better. We need better. We demand better than what this gaggle of plutocrats offer us. This is a government totally devoid of compassion, and friends, it is upon us to defeat them by standing together, by working together, by organising together in solidarity and love. Thank you.
Please give a big warm welcome to Steve North.
Thank you, Chris. Welcome everybody, welcome comrades. As Chris said, I'm Steve North from Unison's NEC. I'm also the branch secretary of Salford City Unison. I'd like to say as well, welcome to comrades from the People Before Profit campaign who've marched up to join us. It's great that we're all together today in Piccadilly Gardens, given the circumstances that we're facing as a class. The other day, I'm sure like me, you all saw the moment when Andy Burnham was presented with the mobile phone at the press conference, where we found out that at that stage the government were likely to simply give £22 million to support us through the next phase of this virus. And if you ever thought before that moment that this government and the Tories did not treat people like us with contempt, it was obvious in that very moment of the way that we were being treated. It's very, very clear that they expect us to pay for this crisis. I'm really glad for what Emma said before when she spoke. You know, this virus is real. I represent care workers. My union represents people who work in the NHS. We've seen too many deaths. We've seen too much suffering already. But a pandemic is not the only form of crisis affecting our class. We've been dealing with poverty for too long. And this government is expecting us to continue to deal with it. They're expecting us to pay for this pandemic and this crisis. And we say no. On the day after we were shown that contempt by government, the Greater Manchester Poverty Action Group statistics came out and told us that over 600,000 people in Greater Manchester are living in poverty. 200,000 children living in poverty. And they can't even be bothered to fund school meals through the half-term, free meals through the half-term holidays. That is what we're facing. But I'll tell you something, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know a lot of Matt in him. But when I saw that statement that came out from the Labour leaders the other day, there was a line in particular that struck me. The North has stood up, and it won't be put back down. And we should refuse to be put back down. Not just working class people in the North, working class people everywhere. We've had to deal with 10 years and more of austerity. And I'll be straight with you. The response from our politicians and our leaders hasn't been good enough at times. But we need to hold them to that. We need to refuse to be put back down. We need to make sure our people are supported through this crisis. But we need to know, and we need to say clearly, that when they come back to make us pay for it through local government cuts, or NHS cuts, or benefit cuts, or higher student fees, we'll say no. And we need the same show of defiance to say that we as a class have had enough. We're going to stand together in solidarity, support each other. It's good that our pressure and the demands have drawn additional concessions from government. But as far as I'm concerned, even 80% of furlough's not enough. Working people should not be forced to pay for this crisis. So we need to keep fighting, we need to keep standing together, and we need to keep demanding the same resolve from our political representatives we've seen over the last week. And if they do that, we'll get behind them. We'll stand together, support each other. Solidarity, comrades. Let's keep fighting. Thank you.
Manchester won't pay for this crisis. Just like to say thank you for everybody to coming out today, despite the weather. Thank you to all our wonderful speakers. Thank you to everybody who's worked so hard to get this event on. It's really good to see so many people come out because, you know, we know what's happening in a minute and we're here to take a stand against the Tories. Long may we keep coming out like this when they try and treat us like shit. So we're going to have to leave it there.
Say to the government, we shouldn't have to pay for the crisis. If we don't carry on protesting, then the government are just carrying on killing us, being reckless about the way that they're dealing with the pandemic, and they also will end up making us pay financially. More and more people now are left in destitution, more people thrown out of work, expected to live on £75 a week, job seekers allowance, or even less if they don't qualify. We have furlough, where they bailed out businesses destitution. All